Hello and welcome to Game Brain, a board gaming podcast about our gaming group. I'm Ben Mandelker, and I'm here today with Trey Alsop and Paul Satachet. Hi guys, how's it going?
Paul.
Paul, there you go.
There we go. I'm here.
That's your signature sound.
That's my signature sound. That's right. Yeah.
It's a steamy Sunday here in LA. A little bit. It's hot.
It is hot. It's hot. I wouldn't have called it steamy, but maybe it's steamy. LA steamy. You are steamy.
I'm steamy.
You're always steamy.
And you were hot.
And you're hot. You guys are both hot.
Oh, thank you.
Don't sell yourself short. No, it's a beautiful summer day here in Los Angeles. And we're recording. There hasn't been an episode in a few weeks. There's been travel. There's been work.
Travel by many people in the group.
Many people.
But we're still here, guys. We're still here.
We're still kicking.
We're here to reassure you.
We're here to reassure you. The podcast is back after a small little summer break there. Today, we are talking about games that we missed the wave on. What we missed, waves we tried to catch, tried to surf, fell off of, or just never even saw the wave in the first place. That is what we're talking about today. How are you guys doing? I haven't, I've seen you guys, but I haven't talked to you in a podcast capacity. Tell everyone what you've been up to. Trey, what have you been up to lately?
Work. I was in Texas recently, playtesting the multiplayer virtual reality experience that I'm doing for the Medal of Honor Museum. So it was a nice benchmark last week.
What is the Medal of Honor Museum, by the way?
So this is a new museum that's being constructed in Arlington, Texas, to commemorate the Medal of Honor, which is the highest award given to military, the highest military award that can be given in the United States. And it's given for like courage and sacrifice.
Wow.
And they're building a museum to kind of honor the Medal of Honor recipients there. And I've been hired to kind of do one of the experiences there, which is based upon the experiences of a guy named Patrick Henry Brady, who received the Medal of Honor for his actions in 1968. He was a dust-off pilot, which is like a medevac pilot who flies Hueys during the war. And his medal was received for actions done on a single day where he, kind of flew into impossible conditions time and time again, had 3 different Hueys kind of shot out from under him, but evacuated almost 100 people in a single day. So it's like a fantastic project to be involved in.
What is your project, as much as you can say about it? Like, what does your role, like, what does it mean to create an experience around it?
Well, so this is going to be a virtual reality experience. It's multiplayer. And so the concept, at least, is that you're a crewman inside the dust-off helicopter. We're not having anybody fly a helicopter, but we have a co-pilot, we have a medic, we have a crew chief, and you're in an immersive 3D experience where we recreate a couple of pickups in Vietnam on this same day as the Medal of Honor Museum. And so you're performing little actions as members of the crew, and hopefully the experience makes you reflect upon what things the medal is celebrating. Like where hopefully the medal is not celebrating that you killed a lot of enemy, rather you did something
heroic.
Well, yes, and something generally self-sacrificing. Putting yourself at risk for others is kind of the core of the values of the medal. Like, for example, I think like over 10% of people who have received the Medal of Honor award are people who literally jumped on a grenade. Like, that's kind of the essence of when you've put your own life, you've sacrificed your own life for others. And also, like, it's kind of an interesting and sad medal in that most recipients of the award, right? I think most recipients of the award, it's awarded posthumously. Wow. So like actually having a Medal of Honor winner who's survived, there's not that many, and a lot of them are getting older now. So there's some from Iraq and Afghanistan and the Gulf War, but there's not that many living Medal of Honor recipients. It's very rare. Anyway, so it's a great project to work on. I was brought in to kind of conceive of the thing, design the game, design the interactives, and then I'm working with a defense contractor that does flight simulators to kind of build the tech of the thing. And the museum should be open in the spring or summer of next year.
Wow, that's amazing. I've been watching Love Island, so I think that's about the same level of importance.
Well, interestingly enough, today, for the first time in my life, I fell out the bed
What?
I was sleeping and I fell out the bed.
Well,
and
looks like...
and I'm heavy, and there was a thud.
Dude, can we create a virtual reality experience around that?
That's right.
Actually, the Paul Satachip bed experience.
It'd be like a side adventure in the.
So that you just received the Medal of Humility.
Yeah.
It was quite disturbing.
Dude,
I'm disturbed for you.
What happened?
I was just on, well, my wife is at her mom's right now, helping her with cataract surgery. So somehow I moved, like, this is a king size. It's a big bed.
Right. You have no excuse.
Somehow I kind of just moved over to her side and then
kept going.
It kept going.
You leaned in.
Yeah. And it's 5:30 in the morning. I go, what the fuck just happened?
That's a really jarring thing. Wow. So
we're all about the same level.
We're all doing pretty much the same level of importance. What's crazy, Trey, is that when you said you were working on the Medal of Honor Museum, I'm sure this is not the first person to tell you this, but like, it's sort of sad. I was like, I just assumed it was some corporate, experience that Microsoft or whoever, Ubisoft or whoever does the Medal of Honor video game was creating.
For the video game.
Yeah, I thought it was like going to be like you go in
here
and
the
you
top
see,
tier winners of
like to celebrate like 2 decades of this game or whatever it was, and you go in. That's totally what I thought it was. I'm actually very delighted to know it's actually much more meaningful than that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think right. If it was based on the actual game, I think they already have game designers.
Yeah,
right.
I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I'm brought in more for the supposedly the educational side of like how do you build an interactive that's going to engage with the what are the educational outcomes you want to have, what's the audience you want, what are the things that people are going to come away from an experience like that, and it needs to be fun.
Yeah,
it needs to be immersive. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But in all seriousness, Paul, what have you been up to aside from falling out of the bed?
I feel so much better about myself now.
Thank
you, Paul.
If you don't have a good answer, we could just leave it at falling out of the bed. You fell out of the bed.
But it was very jarring. I'm like my whole day just feels a little off. And so it was just not something I go like, oh, if I were like frail, like I could have broken a hip.
My aunt recently fell out of the bed and like it really messed her up.
Yeah,
I have to say
this was completely. I've moved to the next level of frailty. I think.
Yeah.
So it was quite jarring.
Yeah, that is jarring. Well, so while Paul was falling out of the bed,
yes, Ben, how about you?
I went to Europe. Which was
right.
super fun. Trey, you also went to Europe,
and
Tom went to Europe. I felt like there was a little bit of a European moment. So I was fortunate enough to go to Europe, which was super fun. I went to many museums, and I also had several interesting experiences with kind of VR stuff. No, actually, I don't think I had a VR thing, but I had audio tours. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see what museums are doing with all that stuff. But I had a really wonderful European vacation. And
it's like 3 weeks, right?
I feel like I was gone for so long. It was 3 weeks. It was 3 weeks and change. And but in terms of how it relates to this podcast is, of course, I took myself to several board game stores, which was super fun.
Totally practical to bring back a bunch of board games.
Which is documented on our
I documented
Instagram.
On our Instagram, which by the way you all should follow. Game Brain Pod, I think is what it is on Instagram. Or just look up Game Brain. Well, it is not. Yes, it is not logical to bring back games, and one thing is that we do live in kind of a global marketplace these days, and we talked, I think, on a recent episode, Trey, like what do we look for when we go into these game shops, and you go in, you're like, oh my goodness, like all these games, and look, all the ones I want, I've already actually purchased, like I've already bought them online or something like that, had them shipped. So like that fun of like, am I going to find a gem is it's, you don't find as many gems, I think. Well, at least for me. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I speak from a position of someone who buys a lot of games.
Yeah.
So
no, but
I did find
it's
one.
tough. Like this is often my experience going to brick and mortar store is like all brick and mortar stores have the problem of the stuff that doesn't sell sticks around.
Right.
So there's like a lot of inventory that I'm completely uninterested in. And then the stuff that's new that I may be interested in, that sells out often right away. Mm-hmm. So that leaves a very small percentage of the, hey, is there some hidden gem here that might still be sticking around for some reason that's been overlooked, that might pique my interest, but it won't necessarily be the thing that you or Matt have just gotten in the mail from Kickstarter,
Exactly. Now there were some, I will say this, there were definitely some games where I was like, never heard of this game. This looks interesting. However, this is where the travel component comes in, which is where you say, is it worth dedicating like the space, my precious carry-on space to this game? Yeah. You know, like there were a few, I'm going to try to see if I can look them up because I tried to do some like last minute, like research on BGG, but like there was bad reception in the shop, so I couldn't get the information. But there was one that was about like making movies that I never heard of. I'm trying to find it like as I'm like scrolling as quickly as possible right now, because I didn't expect to talk about these things. But there were a few where I was like, this looks interesting. There was some weird economic game. I was like, I want to get this, but if game is a total dud, I don't want to like now have filled up my entire backpack with this. So instead, I kind of focus on small games.
Right.
Well, let me tell you about the game stores I went to. In London, I went to, I think it's called Orc's Nest in Covent Garden, which Mike Kananak, member of the Game Brain Circle, he recommended that. That was a really cute shop. I liked it. It was sort of small, but they had a nice selection. Didn't find anything too exciting there for me, but like a decent place. Then I went to Dublin, and as luck would have it, there was a board game shop directly across from my hotel, which nice. I loved. But again, their games were more like they were just sort of like not my type of games. It's hard. I can't describe them. They're just like a lot of Star Wars type of games, things like that. And then I went to Cologne, and I went to A Brave New World, which is this amazing board game shop. And I kind of went buck wild in there. I got lots of little games. And then I went to buck wild. I bought a game that was called Death Valley. And I was like, the art looks so beautiful, and this will be so cute. I got this in Germany. It's all in German. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I bought this game. I can't use it. I just have it. And it's text heavy.
Well, you play it with Google Translate, like, as your.
It's too much. It's too much. So that was very foolhardy of me. But I got from there, I got Surfasaurus Max, which I will talk about. I had heard about it. We heard about it from Shane.
Oh,
not Shane, Shay. Sorry, Shay. Shay from the Rado Network. Shay recommended it highly, and so I got Surfasaurus Max, which I'll talk about in a bit. Someone who worked there recommended a game called Botanic, which I also purchased. There's a new edition of That's Not a Hat. I got the new edition.
That's not hats, plural.
It's not really expansion. It's like a new deck. So I got that. I got this German Death Valley. I don't know why I did that. And I got like some other game. I don't remember.
You should play that. I think you can play with Google Translate. Like, you get access to the camera, and they'll just read everything for you.
We could give it a shot.
I went to a really great game store when I was in Manhattan last month. I was at Barnard University for a conference, and we all one night just went and played board games at a store called Hex & Company.
I've been there. It's in Upper West Side?
Upper West Side, yeah.
It's surprisingly really good.
They have a good library. You just pay, you pay a little bit to kind of grab your table. And then we sat there and drank beer.
Yeah.
And we even played a game I thought I was going to hate called The Trolley Problem. That was actually quite fun.
The trolley.
I feel bad.
Can we just please tell me everything about the trolley problem? Because right. I'm on board for it.
Well, of course, hopefully everyone is familiar with the trolley problem.
But not everyone out there might be.
I didn't know there was a trolley problem.
Well, okay. The idea in this particular game is that how many players you have, you're going to divide everyone up into two teams for a given round only, and then it rotates. But there will be one person who controls the switch am I going to choose track A or track B? And people are playing cards onto track A and track B.
Okay.
And generally, it's either like you're playing cards of like people you want to save, like,
sure.
your firstborn child, or you're putting people on there that are going to be people that like clearly must die,
sure.
genocidal mass murderers,
okay,
type of thing. And so I thought the danger was that this was going to be Cards Against Humanity,
right?
Of like, oh, awful stuff, ha ha ha! Isn't this funny? How awful we are, and it's not actually funny. But it actually ended up being very revealing. And it was one of those games that we play where, like, who is controlling the switch matters tremendously. It's like you have to tailor your answers towards who is on the switch for a given round.
It's like wavelength and murder.
Yeah. It's wavelength murder. Absolutely.
The
And this
trolley
was,
problem.
and so this was a bunch of history professors,
Oh, love it.
drinking beer at Hex and Company and deciding who needed to die. So that was actually a very good social. And I learned a lot about some of my fellow friends there.
I would like to try that. That
Yeah,
sounds
no.
amazing. I remember the other game I got in Germany. It was Spicy. It's a card game that I've heard actually is very fun. I keep hearing about it. I keep seeing it. And I just decided I'm
Is that a
getting
Czech
Spicy.
games thing? Or no, I thought I saw something like
Spicy,
that.
it's like it's like just a little card game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I haven't played it yet, but I think from my impression of it, it's like you're playing cards face down to a pile and you're saying, you're just a bluffing game. You're saying, oh, you put down a 3. This card I'm putting down as a 4, and this card I'm putting down as a 5, and you can just challenge someone. So I have no idea how it plays, but people really like it. And so I think in the spirit of wanting to say, like, I got this in Germany, I bought Spicy. I don't know. I was like overwhelmed. I was buying all these little box games. And then I went to Amsterdam and I went to a few different stores there. I got swept up in the excitement of being in Amsterdam. I bought a game called Don Juan.
Okay.
And I
No relation.
already regret it. It's I don't know. Like I bought it and then because I was like, this is sort of fun. It's like a game. It's a card game.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not even a card game. It's a I split you pick kind of game.
Sure.
And Don Juan is trying to deliver letters to you, and you as one of the ladies, or maybe one of his men.
Sure.
You're hoping that he picks you. Like you're the one that Don Juan really wants. So it's a very like.
Love it. It's completely topical and
Yeah.
appropriate. It'll never get old. It's going to be perfect.
Like I want to be the one chosen by Don Juan, and I looked it up. It has like a 5 on BGG. I was like, "What? Why did I buy this?" But we're gonna play it. We're gonna play the Don Juan game. So
Five as far as complexity, right?
5 in terms of joy, 5 out of 10. But who knows? Maybe it just has a low distribution. Maybe people would really like it. So we're gonna play the Don Juan. I had one of the games I had found in Germany was a game called Cargo Express, and I was like, oh my god, cargo! I always get excited about cargo and economics, but I was like, it was too big of a box. I was like, I'm not gonna take this gamble. So it was great. It was just super fun to see all these stores, and I did come back with like a nice, like little, like a collection of these little boxes of games, and we'll explore them and have fun with them.
Yeah, no.
The game I played is called Trial by Trolley. It is not the trolley problem.
I think
It's
the
called
trolley
Trial.
problem is better.
Yeah, I think it was taken.
I don't know. I like Trial by Trolley.
Trial by Trolley.
Trial by trolley.
And it does not have good reviews, so I just may be a bad person.
Those things can be mutually.
Sometimes, the thing is this: sometimes a game can have bad reviews and could be a wonky game, but could still be fun. Like I think that, for instance, Hunter is a janky ass game. It is janky.
Yeah.
And it's clunky and inelegant, but it's a lot of fun,
Sure.
So sometimes these wonky games. By the way, speaking of wonky games, I think I talked about purchasing Hollywood 1947 at the Complete Strategist.
Right.
Those games, Hollywood 1947 and Tortuga, whatever year that is, they're all part of a series called the Dark Cities series, and they are running a Kickstarter, which I don't know if the Kickstarter is still happening. Maybe it just ended. But it's like deluxeified versions of their games or whatever. So I backed the deluxeified Tortuga because it'll have revised, better rules. And also I have backed Hollywood 1947, even though I haven't even played it, just because I got swept up in it. So I'm excited to get those to the table as well.
And this is the Tortuga we've played.
Tortuga that we played, that we felt was,
and there's some revisions to it now.
They've revised the rule book.
Okay.
They've actually revised the rules. They're having sort of like second edition rules that will, I think, maybe make it not as long and maybe spice it up a little bit more.
There was enough there that I would play a revision.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Tortuga, but it was just stayed too long at the table.
And there's sometimes where like I can't really do anything.
Yeah.
that was my main gripe. It's like sometimes I have no agency.
Yeah,
but it was an interesting attempt at a social,
it was fun,
kind of hidden role.
Yeah, I think that's what
game.
they are. They're like their games are kind of they're not quite as social deduction-y as like an Avalon or Blood
That's
on the Clock
okay,
Tower.
yeah.
But they are sort of their own funky thing. So I'm excited to try Hollywood 1947 because people are really enjoying that one.
Cool. Love it.
God, it's almost like I have some Games on the Brain, right?
Games on the brain.
Going back here.
Yeah.
These are games we like to play. These are games stuck on our brains, oh baby.
Like, some things should never, ever change.
They shouldn't.
I'm proud. I'm proud of my work.
Did you do that piano work on that as well?
No, the Daedalus,
Wow.
our friend Alfred.
Did you guys do that together?
I think
Live,
I recorded
or did
that
did they
audio
add it afterwards?
I'm pretty sure afterwards. I recorded that in my bathroom shower.
Got it.
Just sent on my phone and sent it away. And Alfred
lore.
Made
Exactly.
it
This is
beautiful.
lore. It's perfect lore. That's right.
Games on the Brain.
Well, what we originally conceived of it while we were like eating Chinese food or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
And I
Oh,
said,
wait.
"Oh, it should just be this."
I do definitely remember that.
You know what? My bad. We had a whole discussion that Games on the Brain was going to happen after our recent plays.
I
That's
wasn't
okay.
That's why you were so surprised when I played it, weren't you? Games on the Brain. Trey, what's on your brain?
Just that I've gone back and I am still working on my Galveston game. Feel like I have a lot of progress. I'm trying to set July as a first play test date, but that continues to ruminate in my mind. Did I ever talk to you about what this game is? I've teased it a few
You
times.
teased it, City Builder,
trying to do-
flooding.
City builder with tile placement. So think kind of Carcassonne, but obviously more to it. But part of the idea is that Galveston was leveled by a hurricane back in 1900, and then they rebuilt the city. And so part of the idea is, kind of like Lisboa, where you can kind of start with, hey, here's a city where some things survived, some things didn't, and in the form of tiles. And you have to rebuild it. But also one of the things they did in the years following that hurricane, which is they raised the city. And so I wanted to do something as a tile layer where like actually raising the tiles to make it safer and then building a seawall is part of the city building, so that you start with kind of like a wrecked city and you finish with a completed city. And then your scoring is based on your presence, on the city at the end, maybe a little like Suburbia style.
Okay.
Cool.
Did you ever play Squaring Circleville? I feel like we talked about that.
I have not played
I
that.
feel like we should hunt down a copy of that because have you heard about it? It's a Spielworks game where it was based off of a real town in Ohio where this happened, where the town was built with a circular layout and they decided to change to a grid. And so they had to like move houses around and change all their roads. And the game is literally about doing that, and it's about like at the end there's presents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
My game is wholly original, Ben, and I don't need any references to any other games.
Like
It
from
is
his mind grapes, the pure
Yeah.
like
from his mind.
Athena springing from the head of Zeus. This is
Squeezed
just
right out of
pure
it.
inspiration and
right.
genius. It's my game.
Well, for me, my game. Well, actually, Paul, do you have any games on your brain?
The only thing that I'm really thinking about is Indonesia.
Yeah, you have been thinking about Indonesia a lot.
Jonesing to play it. Huh?
Like,
The game or just the country?
yes,
Both, all of the above.
That's right. No, the game. There's like a second edition or something coming out soon, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those games where I go like, oh, I feel like this is worthy of study. And everyone, when I say that, everyone goes, yeah, like
Right.
we should play this. And then anytime I go, hey, let's play Indonesia, goes,
Well, I don't have a copy. So I can't do that. I can't help you right now. I'm just gonna wait for that third edition.
You're having trouble generating the wave.
there you go. It is, it is.
I never got on. I missed the wave. I played it once.
Yeah, no, like
If there was an Indonesia wave, it was before you even joined the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I totally get that. I'm not even upset about it.
And I think for our group, I think it was like a 2-week wave where like we really liked it. 'Cause it plays 5, and 5 is an awkward number. And then we stopped. I think I don't know if I've ever finished a game of Indonesia.
Have you ever? No, didn't we play a game last year that we finished?
I don't know if we finished.
I don't know.
A lot of times, like it runs longer than you think, and you also feel like, you know what, Tom's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a game that like Tom taught, and it's things that he's generally strong at because it's a lot of bidding, and there's also some kind of really interesting, but there's a lot of shares, takeovers, and then there's the interesting thing where you combine like a rice and a spice company, and that becomes a
Sifuji.
right
Yeah.
which and like everyone always struggles with what that actually means, but Tom doesn't, and so they can be wipeouts.
I think what we like at the end there is like oil and rubber. And I don't think I only remember playing one round of that ever. Like, you know, where, so I don't know, like, if that strategy that Tom has would win. You know, like, he's just ahead. We just never finished the last act of that I can remember.
So what you're saying is that every victory Tom has had in Indonesia just comes with a giant asterisk. As long as that game has been out and
like
published.
That, but like, I'm glad that someone could hear what I was saying.
It's a fantastic game where, like, it's a splatter game, in case we didn't say that. And I have no confidence that there's like a right way to play it. There's a lot of different paths you can go, because essentially you're like bumping up one level of tech every single round. And the effect of your bump up on tech can be really significant. And that's a really difficult decision every round. Well, and your failures, because it's a splatter game, like you can lose in the first round. Like that's one of their signature design points.
Like one of the things that I remember the last time we played, which was about a year ago, I did something that was kind of unusual. And basically you bid, you get to move up a track, and the first track is like the bidding track. So like it's 0, and then everything's times 10, and everything's times 100 as far as like, so you get turn order. And I go like, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go up the bidding track. And all of a sudden, like, I had my choice of whenever I wanted to go, and people were like, "Oh wow, that's strong." And I just remember the game opened up for me, and I go like, "Oh, I don't want to have to relearn this game every time we play. We only play it once a year." And so that's
well. I mean, the other thing is that you know, I think that you should be open to playing it at fewer than 5 players. I think
that's fair.
And I think that, like, because I think it's important to not fixate so much on player count. I think maybe the first time you play a game, or the first time you introduce someone to a game, maybe you want to have an ideal player count. But the game's already been proven to you. You don't have to, like, the game doesn't have to sell itself to you anymore. You don't have to be sold on it. So why do you have to play at like the best ever player count? You should play at a player count where you can just get it to the table and play it.
You make some very strong points.
And I
have no retort to that.
Thank you.
You were
and
right.
Because I've been feeling that way about TI4, honestly. Yeah. And, you know, I was talking to actually James, friend of the podcast, James, and he's been playing it like once a month, he said, because he and Shay again, they have been, I think, really deep diving it. Shay is already kind of a TI4 deep diver. He has like the preeminent, here's how to play instructional video on TI4. But they've just been playing, getting it to the table regardless of how many. And I think that's actually something I would really like to do with TI4.
It doesn't have to be a big event for 6 players that takes an entire day.
And, you know, as we reported on this podcast a few months ago, we recently played a 5-player game instead of a 6-player game, and it was tremendous. I've played a 4-player game before. I've even played 3. You know, I think maybe sometimes we need to focus less on like, oh, but this will be the ideal, perfect social experience, because I think you can still have really good, fun social gameplay experiences at suboptimal player counts.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, I think we've been beholden to the you know, a little too much in our.
Yeah, we shouldn't be as precious about that. So
it's just a lot of times like we'll have 5, and so it's like
Indonesia's a great
3 and
choice.
2 is not great generally. That we rarely choose that. So games that play at 5, that can be a tough number. Games that play at 6 can be a tough number.
It's so funny because I've never thought that until I came to Game Brain, and I never had any sort of mindset.
But you also curate your own games a lot of times where like you know how many people are coming and you can plan for the game.
True, but I also feel like
how many people show up at Tom's can be, well, tonight we have 6 or we have 12. I'm not sure, you know.
Well, the thing is that Tom in his library, Tom is very rigorous, I feel like, in terms of making sure what is in his library is like these are the games that he absolutely loves in his library, right? That's
organized by player count.
They're organized by player count. Yeah. And so at Tom's game night, he has certain 5-player games. So like he has, and this is, I'm not saying this to make a joke about this, Fresh Fish, Taj Mahal, El Grande. And he has other ones, but like those are sort of like if there's 5 players at Tom's game night, like those are the 3 that are going to be that we go to there. And so there is like a world of 5-player games outside of that. And I'm not saying that to be like shady about it, but I'm saying like there are plenty of really great 5-player games. And I don't think it's an evil number in board gaming.
No. There is something too that if you're going to play 5-player though, you probably don't want it to be too heavy. And then someone that's the audience of who shows up at Tom's game nights too. But like, if you're going to play a 5, it needs to be pretty easy to teach, and it's got to move.
You want it to move. That I think is fair. We've had recent success in the spring with, I was getting franchised to the table, and that was turning out to be a really good game for 5 players. And there are plenty of others, but that's for another topic or whatever. Either way, Paul, once you get your hands on a copy of Indonesia, I'll be happy to go down the educational, the experimental.
I'm giving
path
Ben the
with
thumbs up, everyone.
because I want to learn it too. I want to learn it too because I've already forgotten all the rules from last year.
So have I.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
What games are on your brain, Ben?
Well, I have 2 games, actually 3 games on my brain. I forgot to write one down on our little thing. The first game that's actually been so on my brain is a game called Windmill Valley by Danny Garcia that's coming out. It just had a big splash at the UK Games Expo, which I'm so mad because I was in Birmingham the same, like 2 days before the UK Games Expo. And if I had realized that I was going to be in Birmingham at the same time, I would have stayed there 3 extra days and played some games. But Windmill Valley is a game by Danny Garcia, who also did Barcelona and Arborea. I've never played Barcelona. I did not actually love Arborea, but that's fine. This game looks really cool. You basically have gears. It's like it's picking up in the Zolkin world of gears, wherein when you want to do you have 2 gears, sort of a big gear and a small gear in front of you, and they both have actions on them. And so when it's your turn, you rotate the big gear, and wherever the big gear and the little gear are connected, you get to choose between one of those 2 actions. And over the course of the game, you upgrade your gears, and your gears get juicier and juicier, and you are using these gears to take actions, which is neat, but that's not enough to make me intrigued. What makes me intrigued is, and by the way, this is all set against the backdrop of Netherlands and tulip farming, and the gears are windmills actually, which is fun. Okay. So where I became intrigued by it is that there is a communal rush of water because it's the Netherlands. And I love all these Dutch themed games that really deal with flooding and water, like in Lowlands and Pandemic Rising Tide, which was designed by one member of the Splotter team, to bring it all back to Indonesia.
That's right.
So in this game, like there is like this communal like water level that's, I guess, rushing through our tulip area. And so depending on the speed of the water, that will affect how you can rotate your windmills / gears. So if the water level is at 3, when you take your turn, you must advance your windmill 3 spots. So if you want to go slower than that, then you have to do things to adjust the water level. So as people take their actions, the water level is going to go up and down, and that's going to impact the whole table in terms of how they use their windmills. So I like that it's not just like a cool thing with gears where you choose things. It's like how we act as a table impacts how everyone else acts with their windmills. So I like that a lot.
Cool.
I like that the little orange windmills look like bunny rabbits.
Yes, anything that looks like a bunny rabbit's always going to be like a big value add, right?
For me.
Speaking of animals, another game that I'm really interested in is Zoo Tycoon, which is a board game based off of the video game. Did you guys ever play that game?
Yes.
I have not.
Can you tell us a little, I
feel like this is a big Jennifer game. I think Jennifer's played a lot of Zoo Tycoon.
Oh.
But yeah, you're building your own zoo. So it's a little bit of like a city builder, like a Sim City. Mm-hmm. Except for you're designing your park. Like it feels a little bit like the inspiration for Ark Nova.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so you start off as a small zoo and you're getting money from people coming, but you're building a layout and adding attractions, but you're also managing like foot traffic.
Uh-huh.
And you need to have bathrooms at appropriate intervals or bad things happen.
Love that.
You also, if you don't design things properly, you might have animal escapes.
Don't like that.
That can be disastrous. But it's kind of a real time. You're adding attractions, getting more money.
Animals have to get along.
To expand it. Can these animals get along? They require different climates. Like a lot of things are challenges there.
It's like a big sim, and I never played it, but it's totally my kind of game. I backed a game on Kickstarter maybe 2017 or 18 called Dinosaur Island.
Yeah.
That I was really hoping was going to give me that vibe.
Right.
And it really didn't. It's a fun game. I kind of want to give it one more play before I decide whether or not it goes the way of the dinosaur in my collection. But I was really hoping I would get that feeling, of like you have land and you have animals, in this case dinosaurs, and you have to have control of them, otherwise people get killed. So Zoo Tycoon, the board game, it came out I think this year. I think the Kickstarter was last year. And based on the video game, and again, it's you're building your own zoos, but unlike Ark Nova is you play cards and you have a tableau, and you have a zoo in front of you, but it's essentially just kind of like a puzzle of putting pieces down, right? Like the one thing with Ark Nova is that I never feel like I'm truly running a zoo, right?
Sure.
I feel like I'm playing cards. I look at the pictures; those are great. I look at my little zoo. I don't ever look at my zoo and say, "Look at this great zoo I built."
The same
I'm
way
like
that people do with Agricola, where go, look at my farm.
Yeah, I just look at it and say,
"Oh." I mean, I think you like the layout of your zoo matters a lot in.
But it's just like it's just. But ultimately, you just are looking at lots of. To me, they're not polyominoes, but whatever you call those.
Yeah,
I guess
different shaped tiles.
You're looking at tiles like you don't know which animal is in which pen, like except for maybe a reptile house or like maybe some specific things. But it's basically it's cool, it's nice.
It's a spatial puzzle, but it doesn't feel like a.
I don't look at it
thing.
and say, look at
My zoo.
Even with Dinosaur Island, I look down and I say, oh, I put my T-Rex there and I put my Triceratops there and like guests come in here and there's a carousel there. So this game, long story short, I have ordered it. And I'm really hoping it gives me those feelings. But from what I've heard though, it has a huge rule set, which I was not expecting because I was expecting it to be actually, since it's a popular video game, not to be like that. But there's
a lot that goes into that video game.
Yeah, Zoo Tycoon is really more interested in like the animals that you have, how they live together and how they breed, and then releasing them into the wild again. So I'm really interested to see if this sort of hits that zoo sim feeling in a way that Ark Nova doesn't scratch for me.
Sure. It seems
Ark Nova's done pretty well.
Ark Nova's done really well, but I think it's done really well. It's got really fun mechanics, but it's also like, people like looking at cards of animals. I mean, Ark Nova and Wingspan have proven that, right?
Okay, sure.
So I'm hoping that Zoo Tycoon, when it comes, I hope it's going to be kind of a sleeper zoo game.
But you were concerned about the extensive rule set.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned that I'm going to introduce it to everyone and you guys are all going to say, interesting, like swing and a miss. It's too fiddly with this and too fiddly with that. So
we'll see.
I'm excited to report back to everyone, but I'm not getting my Zoo Tycoon game yet until I attach it to my pre-order of Windmill Valley. And so
those are a couple potential waves that you could start.
Those are waves I could start. Yeah. And the other, I'll just say really quickly, my last game on the brain is Railways of the Lost Atlas, which just arrived yesterday. It's an 18xx game, but it's disguised as as just its own game. And Railways of the Lost Atlas, what makes it unique is it's aimed to get people into the 18xx hobby, but also the map you build is modular. So you build a map.
That's interesting.
And then you do
do you build it before or do you build it?
Yeah,
during?
you build it before. And then it's sort of like you build your hex grid, and then you're going to develop it as you develop it.
I think it's great. It's like the Gaia project map building, and then add 18xx to it.
Yeah, it looks really fun, and it also comes with like a ton of different sort of modules. So you can do a quick game, you can do a 2-player game, which again, I don't love that because I'm like, just tell me what the game is. But I actually see a lot of value in that in terms of like if you just want to get like a little bit of 18xx in or teach people.
I see what you're doing, Ben.
Teach people if you want to, like if you want to teach someone like Trey, we could do like a small scenario, get a taste.
There's a metagame being played here.
It does. One thing I noticed when you showed it to me when I walked in is that it does look like the old Avalon Hill bookshelf games. Like it looks kind of like a big leather book that would dark brown leather embossed, which is very reminiscent of a bunch of train games that were made in the 70s by Avalon Hill. So you're going to get me on that level, certainly. Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be fun and to see how like maybe I think what they're trying to do is kind of bring some sort of like modern board game tropes, like build your own board, etc., leaning into companies having their own special powers, asymmetrical powers, really kind of like bring some sort of modern ideas into 18xx, and like it's not called 1833 or 1890 something. So trying to kind of thematically be a little bit more accessible to people. So we'll see.
No, well done.
Thank you.
It's on your brain.
It's on my brain. Those are all the things. Okay, so let's talk about recent plays.
Recent plays. Boom,
recent
boom.
plays. We don't have a recent plays theme song.
Recent plays. They are games we just have played.
Can't come up with your own damn tune? Wow. This is how dependent you are of me. Wow.
I admit that. I yield.
We will find another Bismarcky song to rip off.
Is there another Bismarcky song?
Maybe we'll go to another one-hit wonder instead.
Thank you.
Okay, so Paul.
Hey.
I hear through the grapevine, aka your mouth, you have played a game that a lot of people are talking about these days.
A lot of people
are talking.
A lot of people like Arcs. I'm playing Arcs.
Arcs is the new Cole Whirley hotness. Anytime Cole Whirley puts out a game, there are a lot of people who get very excited about it.
Yeah,
and so
but this is a big one even for
this
him,
is a big one even for Cole Whirley.
Yeah, it's like I think next week or soon we're going to do a review of it. So I'm not going to like lay in too much, stuff up. But like
I've been playing
everything.
Tell us.
It is. I don't want to use the word by far, but I'll use it by far. My favorite Cole Whirley game.
Okay.
It has elements that remind me of TI4. It has elements that feel a little bit like TI4 that you could do in 2 hours ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a campaign mode that we're playing right now. We're 2 chapters into the campaign, and they're
by we you mean you,
Matt, our friend Jordan, and our friend Drew.
And this has some legacy elements the same way that Oath did.
Yeah. Although, like, those legacy elements, the way that Oath plays, like, I have never seen it. I haven't played it Oath long enough to really see the slow evolution of it. Yeah. And this also tries that. And I think it would be more apparent if you were very familiar with all the factions and how they play. Because this is our first game, I don't even know like what's an original deck versus an augmented deck as far as. So it's still very fun, and I'm sure there will be more insight and more goodness, more juice. Like the more I play it,
it's a space-based game, space-themed game,
exactly,
in which like the core actions are driven by card play. It's almost a trick taker in terms of. Someone's going to lead. People have to follow. How they follow determines what their actions are. So your cards both limit you and create opportunities for you. It's hard to do too much planning in advance because you don't know what cards you're going to get. But then you get your cards and you kind of pivot based upon what you have. And it kind of has that Cole Whirley signature thing, which is like there's going to be a lot of different ways to score. And in this, you actually need to like take actions to say, hey, in this generation or whatever or whatever, we're looking at this and we're looking at this and we're looking at this. And like, hey, all that expansion you wanted to do, well, we're not rewarding it this round. So
it's picked by the player. So the players get to pick. Yeah. It's in the game, it's called ambitions, but like, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but like basically you between your group, you guys will decide what scores this round, and then you guys will try to do that.
And then you'll compete over those categories. Yeah.
The card play reminds me of Twilight Struggle in the sense that at its reductive base, Twilight Struggle is basically, I want to do all these things. I'm only going to be able to do half of these. And the other one is just about, regret management. And so you wind up having to choose, am I going to play this because I need this now? Am I going to play 2 cards because I need to score this right now? And so that decision space has always been very interesting to me. I think it's done a very good job with that. I think Jordan and Matt,
if you go to our Discord, there's a lot of discussion in the gaming channel about Arcs. Yeah. We could rename that channel Arcs Talk
right now.
And I would say the enthusiasm. I would say
it's 11.
I would say enthusiasm's maybe at a 20 now. I think that there's a lot of excitement.
So I really like the game. I think, as far, it's a 8 or 9 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
It's
great.
really good. But they're
loving it.
This is like, they're at a 15 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at me like, oh, you don't really like, I really am having a great time playing this.
Yeah.
I'm so I feel like me being really enthusiastic about it, I'm the downer.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, because I think
you're not the true Swiftie.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're enjoying the concert very much.
You're like me when I went to the Taylor Swift concert.
Fair. Like it's a great concert.
Which is what I did do in Stockholm. I went to see Taylor Swift. I was like, I want to know what it's like to stand in Paul Satach's shoes for once.
That's right.
I'm going to go to a Taylor Swift concert. I mean, I'm getting the sense from them based off what they're saying on Discord that this is like a generational game. Like this is a once in a generation, a game comes along and like changes your life and it's all you want to play for the rest of the summer.
And it could be. I mean, it really has, I think, the legs for that. Mm-hmm. But once again, it's still a Cole Worley game. So there are some things that you might not love about Cole Worley as far as like his mechanics or some of the choices he makes. These may mitigate them, but they don't eliminate them.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to playing like my first proper game of it. I played it. I said on this podcast, I played a TTS game of it maybe in late April or so, and it was the most basic version, so there weren't any leaders or asymmetrical things, and it definitely wasn't a campaign. It was sort of like here's how you learn the basics of it. And I'm looking forward to having an in-person play instead of a TTS play, and having more of the colorful elements that are generating this enthusiasm.
Sure.
In the game scenario.
I think everyone should play it and everyone should decide for themselves where between like 7 and 20.
I always get concerned when not concerned, but like I feel like there is this mandate amongst game designers to create like a better or shorter version of TI4. And so we have these games that are like, oh, if you like TI4, finally, here's the TI4 for Euro players, or here's the TI4. And I feel like we have to sort of just stop doing that. I think TI4 should just be TI4, because what I find what happens to me, and I'm not like, I sort of feel like I've become the voice of like TI4 enthusiasm on this podcast. And I love TI4, but by no means do I think it's like the best game of all time. I think it's just like a really fun event game. But I think that the joy of TI4 is that it's like this event. It's this long, epic, ridiculous event where your fate just changes in a second and it's wild. And I think that like, just let TI4 be TI4 and just say, here is a really fun space game that you'll just enjoy. Because I feel like what happens is each and every time, as much as I try to push against it, like these expectations just get built into me where I say, well, this is fun, but like this is what it's missing because TI4 does this and that. And if you're trying to tell me that this is a TI4 killer, you're sadly mistaken, because it's not a killer because it's missing all these things. I say just like let these space games just be like their games, be themselves, and stop trying to be some sort of like other take on TI4.
I think the things that you have expressed to me that you like about TI4 is basically, if I'm going to be overly reductive, the narrative that comes from it. Like, here is this story of the space empire, and over the 6 hours that we've created, there's this like remarkable story of
an emotional up and down throughout the day of just the players interacting with each other. And
I feel ARCs can provide that.
That's great.
Yeah, I think if you give it a chance, I think ARCs can provide that.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Well, looking forward to playing it. I can't tell if the wave has already left the beach or not.
I think
we're going to find out soon enough.
There's a lot of waves.
I think the wave is going to go around the Earth, and it's going to be such a big wave that it's in orbit.
Surf is up.
That's right.
Surf is up. We'll see. I feel like we are just like incessantly teasing our topic now. In terms of Trey, what about you? Any good games recently?
Well, Ben, I was happy when you got back from your trip, because like we have had a lot of people out of town, so we actually haven't had tons of gaming. But it seemed like you came back and you were very conscious that you had not played El Burro to your satisfaction.
I had one job and one job only, which was get El Burro to the table. That's all I wanted to do was play El Burro.
So we've gotten in 2 plays?
2 plays.
Since you've gotten back. And we had our first play together where we really kind of muddled through the rules and learned it and got a lot of things wrong, but still had a great time.
Yep.
But the wave in this case...
And we played it, by the way, we played a 2-player game. And that was very fun. And I just want to report that El Burro worked very nicely as a 2-player game in my mind.
Right. I think in our review, we said we thought 3 was better than 4, certainly. So like we recommended playing it at 3.
I've never played it at 4, so I can't.
Yeah. 4 seemed long.
Okay.
But I was really happy to do that. The wave had actually been started by Elder. Elder was the original El Burro stan who was bringing it to Tom's and playing it, and you were kind of missing it.
Yes. I think actually, well, you're talking about in terms of the wave or whatever.
Yeah, well, like people were actually playing it, and maybe even people that like, like Jake played this game, and like I don't think this is a game that Jake's gonna love, because it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot, and I think one of the things our multiple plays is like I've continued to play this, and I continue to kind of love it. I also continue to find things that we've been playing wrong. I'm on like 5 or 6 plays now, and like they're still like, hey, we finally figured out. No, you don't advance your donkeys when you complete the S contracts.
I know.
The S barrows or whatever. Like so it's like there's still just so much stuff where it's like this could have been better. But at least in this case, we found out that they actually printed the wrong image in the rule book. So like there was very good reason to think that you still.
Oh, was that what? I don't know.
Like they actually have the designer came on and said, yeah, they printed the wrong image in the rule book.
They're working on an errata. They're compiling all the errata right now, and they're very responsive about it. We had a play. We played it twice in the past week, but the last play for me was really remarkable because it came down to 2 points between us, although it turns out that maybe it actually
was a giant asterisk.
It was a giant asterisk because of one of these errata situations. But what I was excited about is that in El Burro, there's this giant donkey track, and I flogged those donkeys. I pushed them as hard as I could, and I got one all the way to the end of the track. Like you get to the end of the track, and then there's boats. I got all the way to the end there, which in reality, it actually probably was supposed to be 2 boats back. But the other donkey, I got all the way pretty much to the end as well. Like I just got them as far as possible. And then I maxed out a milestone track, and I maxed out another donkey track. And what was really cool about it, because I don't want to go into specifics because like it's so specific, but what was cool was that it proved to be a very robust strategy for me, and that I came only 2 points behind the winner. And in reality, maybe I should have even won. It's hard to walk it back because because of these errata things. But it's one of those moments where you say, oh, this path or this strategy that I didn't really think was more than just like an ancillary strategy, finding a way to make it the main strategy, and it was robust enough to do that. And that was so cool. And that's what I've been loving about the game, is that there's just so many different ways to approach it and to play with it.
Yeah, you've gotten to the place now where you have enough reps under your belt where you can really kind of, what the levers are doing now, and so you can start to exercise some expertise with that. And in that particular game, there was part of the setup of it actually rewarded what you were doing, and I think that was one of the reasons you're like, I'm going to explore this time. It's like the rewards at the end really supported it, and so the game feels like the place that I want to get to in a lot of games of like, hey, I've had a lot of recent plays of this. I've really gotten underneath its skin. I'm eager to try out new strategies. It's like where you want to get on Indonesia and you're not, and it's hard to get there on some, but like the game is, in my opinion, worth it.
Yeah. I think it's a tremendous game. I think El Burro right now, it's like probably my favorite game of 2024 that I've played so far. Given that I haven't played too many, there haven't been too many new games, or at least that I've played. But I think it's incredible fun. But it's also right in my wheelhouse. I love a good Euro game. I feel in some ways like these sort of games are not cool at the moment by like the board game intelligentsia. Like, oh, it's a Euro game and you're comboing things and you're building an engine. I don't think that's not going to like light up the interwebs of the board game, the board game hipsters, And so I think that but for those of us who love Euro games, who love like it's farming, it's combos and all that, like it's just like it's so juicy, it's so wonderful to me. And one thing what do you want?
Well, I just had a hot take.
What's that?
You're defending Euros here. I think what Arcs does and what Cole Worley does is he's legitimizing Ameritrash in its finest form.
Sure.
Elevating it.
Elevating and legitimizing Ameritrash.
But there is like a certain amount of like snobbery in saying that, like, oh, elevate, like it's like this shitty type of board game that finally someone came and saved, and it's like, no, I mean, I don't think Ameritrash is great
It's
on
a
its
style.
own. It's great on its own.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be elevated. But I think what you have though is that maybe he's taking it and trying to like take a new like a Euro lens to it, you know, and seeing what can be made of it, perhaps.
See, I'm not sure there's so much
Or
of
is
the
he trying to
Euro
elevate
lens.
it?
I think it is
trying to-
in that category. And by that I mean, you know, yes, I'm being a little snide, but it is the kind of game. It is the kind of game though where you like Paul. If I'm determined on my turn that I want to go and punch you in the face, I can go punch you in the face in Arcs. It's like Risk. I'm deciding who I want to attack. Sometimes, like that's kind of a hallmark of Ameritrash games, and they can be wonderful and they can be really fun and satisfying. But that's often different. Like Euros don't do that, where I can just pick who I want to damage. Like that's not a hallmark of Euros.
Maybe the right word is not to say that he's trying to elevate Ameritrash. Maybe he's trying to evolve it to its next level in the way that a lot of Euro games have actually gone down, have had that happen, you know. But either way, I think it's a really fun game. And one thing I wanted to address is, for some people, there may be a question of, if I have La Granja, do I need El Burro? If I have El Burro, do I still need El Granja? Is there room for both games in my collection? And I would say, if you had to choose just one, I would choose El Burro.
Yeah, it replaces it.
It replaces it.
It's a revision.
I'm not going to get rid of my La Granja unless I absolutely have to, because I think there is some value in sort of like a smaller footprint and a little more of a streamlined game. You know, there is value in that. But I think El Burro, like if you have neither, I say just get El Burro, and I think you'll be happy. You know, I think the changes that have been made between both games, like I don't miss a single thing that was taken out of La Granja, La Granja for El Burro. So
no, I think El Burro is designed to address La Granja's shortcomings.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it had shortcomings, but it turns out.
But now you do.
Turns out
it can have so many. And one last thing that I do want to talk about, because I'm not sure if it was brought up or not, but like one thing that's great about El Burro that I just absolutely love is that it has a tech tree. It has a big, beautiful tech tree. And the fact that they wedged in a tech tree in this game, and that the only way that you can go advance on the tech tree is by doing something very significant for other people, which is basically help them complete their contracts or whatever they need to do, which opens up big powers for them. That's great that you have to help other people to improve your tech tree. I think that's a great feature. So I think for that alone, it kind of just like destroys La Granja. So I don't know. I love it.
It's a big advance. The goat move.
The goat move.
The goat move is a
goat
big
deliveries.
advance in the game.
I love the goat deliveries.
So that's all I've been playing. That, and I've also been watching a lot of Agricola on stream. Lumen has actually been running kind of a community tournament
really
on the weekends now of very good international players. And so they had an 8-person not round robin, but four games between 8 different people. And the final is going to come up next weekend. So they had 2 different weekends of playing it. And those have actually been really fantastic games. Watching people play the game at a very high level has been.
When do those normally air?
He streams them on Saturday and then puts them up on YouTube. This is Lumen Sperling on YouTube, who's, you know, a friend who's been on the on the podcast a couple of times, but it's been really fascinating to see great players playing it. Like it's fun enough for me just to watch Agricola. Like that's who I am.
Yeah. That's very cool. I recently got a play in with Paul and
with me. Hi,
Paul
everyone.
and friend of the podcast, David Gillison, and some others. We got in a game of 1930, the Golden Age of Airlines, which is from Rio Grande Games by Alex Sorbello. And this one was a game that I bought on a whim. I was just like, airplanes. I just want more airplane games. I'm like, that's my next evolution, going from trains to airplanes.
That's right. Sure. That's how it goes.
I do have a lot of car games too. I really do the trains, planes,
You're
and automobiles.
Transportation person.
I am a transpo person. Yeah, that's what I always think. I'm such a connector.
Like,
cities, trains, airplanes.
I like it all.
That's right.
I love the logistics of it. I love like all that stuff. So 1930, the Golden Age of Airlines. I got it on a whim. It's a surprisingly large box. It's basically it's somewhere between a Cube Rails game and an 18xx game in that like it's economic. You're buying shares of companies, but it has a lot of things you might see in an 18xx game, like paying out dividends, withholding, etc. But it's not 18xx at all. Like there's things like if you buy a share in an airline, you get to act on behalf of that airline, even though you may not be the president of the airline. So everyone could do different things for these flights. Paul, how would you describe this game? Like, how would you explain how this game works? I should say.
I would say that it takes a lot of like concepts that might be exclusive to other games and combines them into its own unique thing. Like, for example, the paying the dividends. I think that is 18xx. Or you can pay dividends, you can pay half dividends, you can invest and all that stuff. So the thing that makes it not 18xx is like there are no routes.
Yeah, that's what's so strange. There are no basically what you do is you have a map in front of you that's of North America, and you can open up gates in different cities. Like gates. Meaning that like you literally, it's kind of like
you fly into there.
You're saying that your airline will now service this city.
I see. And so you're not drawing lines, but you have cities you service.
Yeah. So like New York, Kansas City, St. Louis, Los Angeles, places like that. And when you open up the gate, these cities are going to generate they're going to generate income for you. And so if I open up in New York City, maybe like my income might go up to an 8 or something like that. And there's like a chart. And as your income, your sort of like base level income goes up, you are going to open up the ability to have hubs. So now you can build hubs in certain cities, and that will increase your income even more. So you're constantly trying to build your income by expanding through different gates. And you can also expand to different like territories like Canada, South America, eventually to Europe.
Asia,
yeah.
I think what is interesting is you buy stock, and in the way that we played, we generally had, this is our airline. We start off with an airline that's yours, and then you buy shares in other people's airlines. And what that allows, or what happens, is basically, you can, because you have an action in someone else's airline, you can actually hurt them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's actually advantageous for you to hurt them in order to do so, to maximize your points and minimize theirs. And so there's this, what happened with our game was there seemed to be this natural alliance and then de-alliance, if that's the word. So there's a social aspect to it that I think is pretty fun. I remember, was it David? David decided to not go and go into another person's airline, so he decided to make his own airline, and that wound up hurting him. Because in the beginning, it's always better to you want people to invest in your airlines, because as we mentioned before, anyone who has a share in an airline can act on behalf of the airline, which means that if I bought 2 shares of Pan Am, or their version, which is called Pan Air. Yeah. That means I've got 2 shares in it, which means I can do 2 actions on behalf of that airline to help that airline grow and become profitable. But if Paul comes in, now Paul has an action. So now there's 3 actions, which means that over the course of the round, Pan Air can have 3 different things happen for it, which means
it has greater capitalization.
Right. Yeah, so when you buy into an airline, it's more likely to succeed.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's where the alliance comes from.
But there's a point where there's a pivot where you're oh, now because Ben has more stock in Pan Air, and I'm a one stock person, perhaps it's better for me to do a less optimal action so that he can't get as many points, because every point I get, he gets 4 or whatever. So there's this pivot. You're always pivoting.
It's like you have it's like House of the Dragon or something like that, where you have someone who's on your small council, but do you really trust them? It's well, I run this council, but I'm not sure, and I need you as my person on the council, but I'm not sure if I trust you. Maybe you're a spy.
There was in our game, there was a point we ended a round or so early. It's a long game. We were 5 players, and we got through 3 of the 6 rounds, and it was we had already spent a good amount of time just getting through 3 rounds. But at the last round, there was this point where I go like, oh, everyone should sabotage each other's main airline.
Classic Paul.
Because like otherwise they're going to get to the next scoring phase and then they're going to get more money. And I remember John did not like that analysis. He did not like that analysis. He was like, this is not how I play. I don't like this sabotage, blah, blah, blah. I go like, you don't play a lot of 18xx because that's what happens a lot. Yeah.
Though, online, one thing with this game that's different from 18xx is that when you buy a share of something, you can't sell it. Like there's no market manipulation. Huh. You can't sell anything.
You're in.
You're in. You have a share limit.
This sounds like partnerships, but it sounds like Paul
really
did what
funky.
Paul's going to do to a game.
It's a really funky game. But what's interesting though is that you can't sell shares. And so a lot of people online have criticized the game. They say like, what's the point? These companies just go up. There's no, it just goes up. You just buy in on the best company and then you might even be screwed because maybe there's a company that's clearly the best company and then you don't get a shot because of turn order to even buy into it. So it's like, I would rather play an 18xx. But to me, it felt very different from 18xx. And I think people also want the harsher bite of an 18xx, but we found that this game actually has a pretty harsh bite, and it's a very passive aggressive game. But like, there's things you can do because you are like essentially operating on behalf of maybe someone else's airline that benefits them more. Yet, like Paul said, you do weird things, like you can move a gate out of a city, and then that advantages your airline. Your airline gets to take over that gate, and so there's all sorts of interesting stuff. And what I found was that for 3 hours or however long we were playing it, there was discussion the entire time.
Completely engrossed.
Everyone at the table, there's the entire time everyone's back and forth. You should go there. Well, if you go there, then Ben goes in there. Well, what about this? Well, I'll go in there. And how about this? I'll fly the airplane if you open up a new market in like Florida. And so like the game was a strange game. It's a real strange game, but like you cannot deny the fact that for hours we were all above the table engaged in a way that was really fun.
Our group tends to like that. That may not be everybody's thing. Yeah. They just want to play the game. Why are we talking so much?
Mm-hmm. I don't think that 1930 Golden Age of Airlines is going to be for everyone, but I do think it's a neat game and might do well in our group. Yeah, no one's talking about this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't play it on Board Game Arena, for example.
It's a social game.
Yeah, I think you'd need to be seeing what people are doing because it feels good when people help you and it feels bad when people aren't helping you.
And I think
there were times where like I just remember like you were looking at David, goes like, hey, it's gonna be okay, and then you just like attack him. Like this is round 2. We're like, oh, I guess we're playing that game, and then David, in retaliation, decided to attack me for no reason. I was like, thanks. Friend, partner,
I think if you're
minority share stake.
I think if you play this game and you strip out the social component, which is what would happen online, then you're just doing the mechanics of it, which may feel a little underwhelming. But with live people, there is sort of like a magic that happens over the table that was really cool.
Yeah, a good time.
Another game that we just got to play, Paul and I got to play with Jordan, and David.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago was Nucleum Australia.
Yeah.
Paul, as our Australia resident, do you want to tell us?
Well,
tell everyone about
I might not have mentioned this on the podcast, but I used to live in Australia. If you like Nucleum, I think you will really like Nucleum Australia. They add a boat component to it, so it's not as restrictive. Like the map there's more latitude with the map, and they add the concept of coal mines, which makes it a little less tight. And so that for those, if you like it really tight, then the coal mines are going to make you irritated. But if you want a little more play, the way that they mitigate that is the uranium is now like in the center of Australia. So like getting uranium, you have to go somewhere.
Is it uranium or is it nucleum?
Nucleum is what you convert uranium to. I believe.
Yeah, you bring all that stuff to the power plant and where the nucleum is, and then it leaves the power plant as energy, and it fuels,
lore.
Yeah, it fuels towns, right?
Nucleum is basically, to me, a child of Agricola and Concordia.
Okay.
That's how I see it. And both games I'm very bad at, and both games like feel a little like isolating to me. So I find it doubly frustrating.
Yeah.
So I
you had a rough go of it.
So just to understand, like Ben was close to lapping me twice.
This is true.
But Ben had lapped everyone once.
I had like a dream game.
Yeah, it was, and I've always seen it end this way. Like I've seen someone like have like a super, like usually Jordan, like you know, a super massive like there's a point where you're like, oh, it's over.
Right.
But that's just, you know, I play it wrong. The same way I play Concordia wrong. I never know when to pull up my cards. I just play all my cards because I'm playing it wrong and I can't stop playing it.
Yeah.
It's like me.
Yeah, you just kept to play. You're like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing it. But I gotta play another one.
It's just like me taking fish with Lahav. Like it is literally. So there's nothing negative. I'm not saying anything negative about the game aside from the fact that
you don't understand it
or like. You know, but it's because like to me it feels solitary. Like it's not as interactive as a lot of people.
Well, the interactive's on the map, right?
Right.
But you're just racing for these places. I'm not a very big fan of just racing for.
It's not like what we just talked about. Not like there was a lot of discussion or negotiation or deals to be made, etc.
Yeah.
It's just like you're like, okay, I need to get to 9 of these things. How's Jordan looking? How's Paul looking? It's like that kind of thing. You know?
And there's an aspect of it where there is so much happening on someone's map, especially in their action tiles, that I can't keep track of like, oh, what can they really do? And nor should I want to because it's just too much. And so then I go like, oh, here I'm kind of guessing at some point. And so, you know, it's
you just sort of have to like, it's a leap of faith. There's sometimes where someone will be like, well, I just did this, which unlocks this, and that got me this tech upgrade, which allows me to do this action, which let me do this. And you're like, sure, okay, I just can trust you. But I had a I had a dream game. It all worked out very, very well, and I was sort of a dream killer because I think that was the first time Jordan had lost in Nucleum, and he looked sad.
Part. That was my favorite part. My favorite part is Jordan going like, I don't understand how I lost.
He was.
I love it.
I kept on beating him. I kept on beating him to races, and I kept on breaking his heart, and he was very sad. He was crestfallen. It seemed like
Ben is smiling right now. By the way, he's
because
saying I'm very sad. You need to picture a very large.
Well, because
smile
I just feel like, and I feel like this is only my second time ever playing Nucleum. This was a talk about a game that I missed the wave with.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this will be our transition. I was going to talk about Surfasaurus Max, but I can table that. But I had played Nucleum, came to our group. Everyone played it. Everyone was excited about it. Somehow, I think maybe I was touring with Watcher Crappens. No, but I don't think I was.
I think you were into White Castle or
no, I missed White Castle too. I was
Red
maybe
Cathedral?
traveling. I was away. I don't know. No, Red Cathedral's early in the year. I just somehow missed the entire Nucleum thing. Oh, it's when I had my appendicitis and I was stuck in New York with appendicitis, recovering. Okay. Nucleum, because you know how I know that? Because Nucleum arrived at my doorstep, and Paul, you had to fetch it.
Yep.
Everyone played Nucleum, and everyone got into it, and then like White Cat, it all just happened in those like 3 weeks. And so I only got to play Nucleum once and a 2-player game. So this is my first time playing it at 4 players. So I was like really excited that I did so well because the first time I played it, I did so badly.
I think with all your reps of Concordia, like I would expect you to be quite good at it.
I don't know. The first time I played Nucleum, I was absolutely destroyed by it.
I see what you're referencing.
You kept on like recycling a lot sooner than I'd want.
Well, because my powers, like I had, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I saw a vision. I had a vision.
When you recycle, that's also your income, right?
But I had I had the very clear vision of what I had to do. And for once I did not waver from it. I just kept on hammering it. And normally I'd get distracted by the big move, the exciting move.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I was like, oh, and that's because you were sitting across from me and I was watching your game versus watching my game.
Yeah.
And I was going, like, he is doing something fundamentally different than me. And it's not exclusively because of his power. You know, it's like he's making choices like, oh, I need to reset now because there's a race that needs to be done now, or there's a blah blah.
I was usually keeping an eye on Jordan because I knew that he is the most experienced, and I knew that he was keeping an eye on all the races, and so I knew like I have to do something before before it hits Jordan. But also, but by the way, so Nucleum Australia, we should mention like what are the things that it brings to the table that the base does not have. There are ships that are there now, and the ships sort of open up new routes, and they extend your network. They allow you to transport coal and uranium on them, which I think you may have mentioned, but you just can't do electricity on them. And these coal mines that you mentioned, these coal mines, I was the only one who was really playing. You had one. Yeah. But I was the one who was going heavy on these. It's just free energy. Yeah. Like you get a coal mine and you just have free energy for the rest of the game, essentially. And no one else was doing it, and no one was competing with me. And I had 4, and it turns out I could have kept on going. I just wouldn't have gotten bonuses. So I just had like a base level of like a lot of energy, and I could always do I could always power up whatever I wanted.
Now, this isn't a review. Like I know for those of you who are waiting, this is the true Nucleum Australia review will happen between me, Ben, and Candace to finish our trilogy.
Yeah, our trilogy that started with Railways of the World, Australia,
in
1848, Australia.
Got it. And so I know everyone's going like, why are you guys talking about? Like, this is just kind of first impressions. We're going to do
first. I mean, I don't know if I should play it again. I had such a commanding.
That's
game.
Right. Like
I think I peaked.
You solved it.
I think there's nothing more.
Like we were playing exhibition game for Candace, and then you'll just watch me come in last again.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say one. I'll say just real quickly before we go on to this topic, because it does not need to be belabored. But I did play this game, Surfosaurus Max, which was recommended to us by Shay. It's a card game. I don't know. It's not like a trick taker, but basically, it's really easy to pitch. Which is that if you play it with, let's say 4, I think it goes up to 4 players, maybe 5. Who knows? Everyone plays a card. And has numerical, the cards have, I forget, the highest number may be 7, 12, who knows. Multiple suits, and we all play cards, and we go around twice around the horn. And then we look at all the cards that are on the table, and we sort of make a collective poker hand. Okay. So like of all the cards, what is the best hand that we can make with all the cards that are there? Being that like essentially a royal flush is the best, not royal flush, but like a sequence of the same suit is going to be the best. And then of that sort of thing, like you choose the highest of the sequence, the highest 4 cards. So we look at all the cards that everyone's played together. We make a collective hand. And if the cards that you contributed are in that hand, then you get to score that card. And each card has points on it. The higher the card, the lower the points. Sure. So if you contribute like a 2, you'll get more points from a 2, but most likely if you contribute a 2, it will not be involved in the communal scoring.
But like if the 2 is a part of a flush,
right,
or a straight,
But if a 2 is part of a flush, let's say I play a 2. Let's say we all play yellow cards. I play a 2. You play a 7. Trey, you play a 9. Someone else plays a 3, and then you decide to come in and you play. On the second go around, you play like an 8 of that flush. Now my top 4 cards, my 2 is out of the running. So it's a simple premise, but it works out really well. Cool. And I understand why this game has a lot of hype around it. Sure. It's really, really fun.
It seems like really dinosaur theme.
Very well. The best.
Are we surfing dinosaurs?
Well, yes, we are. Every card is a surfing dinosaur, and the best part is when it's your turn to start the round, everyone has like a card that's solely a surfboard, and there's a dinosaur figurine, and you put it on your surfboard, and now you have a surfing dinosaur catching a wave in front of you.
Finally,
so
finally,
that market has been reached.
Justice for dinosaurs.
Yeah. So, but Surfosaurus Max, like very fun. I think you guys would actually really enjoy it quite a bit.
I think that sounds great. I'd love to play it.
Yeah. So let's move on.
Trying to bring back the wave of trick taking or games that was a wave.
That was a wave that I don't know if I missed it or not. I can't tell I don't think I missed it.
Part of the wave.
I think I was part of that wave. I was not part of the genesis of the wave. The wave sort of like came, and I had to either get on the wave or let it like wash me into the sea. Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about this. Okay, so Trey, you're the one who proposed this topic about like games that are like the waves of games, getting on them, missing them.
Well, this is like a lot of times we talk about like phenomena we experience as being part of a gaming group. And I think you actually coined this term because you felt like you had missed out on some games.
Yeah.
You missed a wave, and and you definitely wanted to catch it. There's times where you recognize there has been a wave, and you watch it go past, and you feel like it's too late, and then it ends, and like. So I totally missed the thing. And there's other times where like, there's still a chance I can catch this thing, but it's going to take I'm going to have to paddle really hard to catch this wave because everybody else is already up.
Yeah.
And I've got to paddle real hard to get on to it. And so there's just some value in kind of like exploring this because I think this is something that happens in gaming groups. And also like, yes, in the
like
board
why?
gaming community, we are somewhat addicted to the cult of the new.
Right.
When something comes out and it's in our minds the way that Arcs is right now, or maybe Elbero was or is still, you know, like what you can miss it. What can you do about it?
And also, what do these waves really say about us as gamers? What do these waves say about the hobby, like, and how we approach playing games, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to elaborate a little bit more about, like, I don't know what, I guess
let's pick some games. Let's just talk about some games that we've
I mean, like what, like, sure. So,
well, maybe you want to break it down like, okay, like why do these waves happen? Well,
why do they happen?
Sometimes we have new releases, right?
Yeah.
So like when new stuff happens, and we also have people that are like the surfers that are hitting the water as the sun is just beginning to lighten the sky in the morning, you know, and like this is Matt.
Yeah.
Generally, and sometimes you.
I don't think, here's the thing. I buy games. I get excited about games. Here's what I do. I take my surfboard and I slap it right there on the water. And I'm like, this shall create a wave. I get my Triton staff and I go out into the ocean and I'm like, I shall create a wave. And I slam it down. And sometimes there's a ripple. I don't really feel like I create waves.
I don't want to speak for everyone, so please correct me. But just so you know, everyone, I don't think any one of us surfs.
No, I don't surf.
This is all bad.
No, I feel like
it's just based on Point Break.
I feel like I have games that I am I get very, very excited about, and I try to create a wave. Sometimes it does happen. Like I feel like in my life, the game where I was the most like wave creating, it's not that I created the wave, but like where I got on as the wave was happening and people didn't even know this wave was going to happen, was Terraforming Mars. I bought it the day it came out. I remember it was like September 28th, 2016. I remember it was like, I saw the day it was going to launch. I had been following the press. I bought it. I brought it to my game group. Everyone flipped out about it and no one could get it. And like I had just, I had pounced at the right time. And so for the longest time, I had the copy.
And you could
so
teach
I was so the wave was happening in board gaming, but because I had the copy in my game group, everyone needed me. And so I was the surfboard.
It's not a bad feeling.
No, I was the surfboard.
Started the wave.
Yeah, I was the surfboard, and it felt great. It felt so exciting to be part of that.
No,
see, I think I am the lazy surfer who kind of wades out around 10 a.m. And I'm looking to the Matt or Candace who can say the water's real good over here,
right?
And I've already surfed this a couple of times. Let me show you. Like that's the lazy surfer perspective. Like when I can join it, and that's another thing. Like one of the great things that Matt does is like he may be an early adapter, but then he goes and like learns the rules and can teach.
Well, he's got a magnetic personality, and when he gets excited about something, he's really good about making other people excited about it. And when he's excited, you want to be excited with him, and you want to join that wave. And unfortunately, I don't have that, and so I could only.
You're underselling yourself because
I'm not sure I buy this.
You have created an 18x wave for yourself that has permeated all your group. Like maybe not game brain, but like you play 18x more than I think anyone.
Okay, I think there's a difference between like getting people interested in a game and seeing something that's interesting versus like actually generating a wave of enthusiasm where it's not. I think a wave of enthusiasm is that everyone wants to play these games. It's not just me saying like, hey, I've sold you on this system. Do you want to come over? I'm going to play it. People, sure, that sounds like fun. It's different from just like spreading the word about a game. I think a wave is like everyone wants to play it. And everyone's gonna bring it to the table, and there may be multiple copies of it at a big game group at the table, and like that to me is like the wave, not just like, hey, I like a game.
Okay, I see a definition. I like that.
Yeah, again, though, I'm totally with Paul on this. So like, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. And again, I'm a good example here of, because I'm so not this.
Sure.
It's like I've bought in the last year, like I buy any kind of like climate change game. And like I bought Daybreak, I bought Pampero. And like, these are games that I should have, as I bought them, like learned them and then been like, guys, we're playing Daybreak.
Yeah.
Same designer as Pandemic. This is going to be great. And then I didn't. You know, like I didn't do the stuff that was going
your wave.
to start the wave. And it's like
10 a.m. Ugh.
Yeah, like but people are already out playing on their own waves there. They're not, but like I don't even know how to surf the Daybreak wave. I've like played it on BGA solo a couple times. I couldn't teach that game.
Right.
I got Pampero. Thank God Matt has also like read the rules and is now ready to
start the
ready to
Pampero
teach.
wave.
Like thank God.
Like-
Because 10 a.m. is not gonna work. And like, I'm at the water and I'm like, how do you surf? Because
Right.
I don't know.
Boogie boarder. That's what
I know I was assigned. Tom assigned me to be able to teach this game, and I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like a wave is when there's just sort of like, it's like, it feels more like a phenomenon. Like there's like, everyone wants to play this game almost. Like, I think Barrage was Barrage was a really good wave.
It was a
I
long
was part
wave.
of the
I
Barrage
think
wave.
for us we had a Marrakesh bit.
Well, again,
was
I
you?
don't think that I don't think that Marrakesh was a wave. I think that Marrakesh was a game. I loved it. I wanted to get it to the table. Other people enjoyed it, so they got to the table. I would not call it a wave. I don't think. Although I should take that back, because Trey, you felt that you know what it is. Well, this makes us have to expand the definition of what this is, because I remember you had said a few times, like, I feel like I've missed the Marrakesh wave, which was basically the window where I was excited to play Marrakesh and I wanted to play it a lot, and so I guess I did have a wave there.
There,
Absolutely.
there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was an example of.
There's a game that you wanted to play, and that there was one person who was really leading the charge and making sure it was getting to the
Maybe
table.
that's part of like what we're talking about here is like I had to say, hey, by the way, yes, I would like to play this, and then you kind of helped make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt may
There
have
was a
helped make
hegemony
that
wave,
happen.
and there was a hegemony wave. I'm not going to lie. That was a full-fledged wave.
Yeah, 100%.
When that happened.
I think one of the things about like, so sometimes you can kind of catch the wave, and it does involve you being proactive and say, hey, I really want to play this. Prioritize me. And our group is pretty good about like Trey has said he really wants to play Marrakesh. So let's get Marrakesh to the table today. We've
you
already
have to
got
really-
3. We've got room for one more because these are accounted for or something like that.
But you really have to, if you've missed the wave and you want to like get on that wave, like after the fact,
You have to
like,
self-advocate, yeah.
you have to not just you can't just say, what about this game? You have to like say, guys, I didn't get to play
Cashing
this.
in.
You have to you have to cash in some sort of invisible chip. You have to bring your invisible surfboard if I'm going to bring this.
And God bless you if you're in another wave's wake right now.
Yeah, because the thing is this. So with Horseless Carriage, that's been one I've talked about in this a lot, which is that when that first arrived, I remember the day it arrived, and we were going to go to Matt's, and there was a table that was set up for Horseless Carriage, and I had dibs on that table, and I actually stepped away from the table because Candace came that night, and Candace and I had talked about playing brick and mortar, and in my mind I said, you know what, I'm going to go to the brick and mortar table because it's so much harder to get brick and mortar to the table. Not as many people are interested in that game, and so like let me seize this because Horseless Carriage will come to the table a million times. Well, I didn't go to that table, and I don't know, maybe I had to travel again or something. I fully missed the Horseless Carriage wave, and then anytime I suggested a Horseless Carriage, which by the way is a 5-player game, every single time people go, maybe this instead.
But that's because it wasn't that much of a wave. It was a short wave. I think a lot of people played Horseless Carriage and were like one and done.
Well, so
on that, they called it a day in surfing.
But there was a
terms
lot.
after-
But here's the thing, though. There was a lot of talk on this very podcast of like,
good it
this is
was.
an interesting game, and we're going to be playing it for a long time to come. So
but we haven't.
true. But I'm hearing the podcast,
yeah,
and
you
so I'm
get the
thinking, I'm thinking, okay, so I get to play this, and then but a lot of people was a one and done. So like it was a short wave, but it was a wave. And it was like, oh, it's over. So it wasn't. I didn't get to play it for the first time until like months later. Months,
maybe a year, because you played it with me, and
Yeah.
and that was my first time too. I had missed the Horseless Carriage too. Although to be fair, like hearing everyone talk about it and how excited they were about it, I was going, this isn't going to last. Because
you'd seen this.
Well,
wave
also
before.
there were some big games that came on the heels of Horseless Carriage. I don't remember what they were.
Yeah,
was it
right.
Station Fall or maybe not?
But I just remember like, oh, this is too complex. Like for all of it, it was just going to be too much for it to be a regular play. You know?
I think I was going to say, like, I think what you've identified right there is a real issue. Like, the higher the complexity of the game, like, if it's good and complex, it's more likely to create a wave that's going to exclude others.
Sure.
Because I can relate to that. Like, right now, I'm really liking El Burro, but I don't especially want to sit down and play with some new players right now. Like, I'm gotten under the skin of the thing, and it's a substantial teach.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would be more interested in playing with people that already know it now.
Sure.
Than, hey, the three of us know the game, but we're going to spend an hour teaching it again before we start. Like, that's one of the things that can kind of contribute to the wave. It's like, I want to play a lot of this, but the teach is brutal. So there might be a little bit of self-segregation going on there that's going to exclude the newbie.
There is like
don't serve the speech, man.
Yeah, there's also like with a wave, like the longevity of a wave, like it's got to hit this perfect sweet spot, because if the game is too complex, people are not going to want to keep on reteaching it to new people, which means the wave is going to peter off, because it's really going to wind up just being a few people who will play it, and then maybe they just don't want to play it anymore. If the game is actually too accessible, what's going to happen is then it'll actually get to the table, I believe, lot very quickly, because everyone can jump on board and gets played a lot, and then everyone burns through it really quickly. Yeah. So like to find that middle range game, which honestly Terraforming Mars was at that time, it was really the perfect wave game. It just it's also classic. Like it's a classic for a reason, you know. Yeah. Barrage was also Barrage. Yeah. I mean, Barrage I feel like had a pretty sizable wave.
I always like the only thing that I tried to the two games that I most advocate for, like in the last decade, were Hegemony and
Age of Innovation.
Age of Innovation. That's right. And like I've gotten to play Age of Innovation maybe 5 times, and that's with me. Like,
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I would have guessed higher.
Yeah. No. It's not like I'm secretly playing with other people.
No, because a lot of times, right? We'll get to what are we playing tonight, and you're like, I'd love to play Age of Innovation, right. And then
exactly,
it's tough getting people to sign on for that, right?
And I think like for all of it, I think people, how should I say in the best way, like respect it but don't like it. I just think like Jordan, for example, on our little podcast, he said it was his best game of 2024. Like and
he consistently puts it on for the weekly games on the brain thing that I do on Instagram. He consistently puts it on there.
But there's this aspect where I go like, nah, does anyone really want to play it? It's just me, and maybe Jordan I can twist his arm into it.
It's weird. Like, I feel like Age of Innovation has an X Factor issue for me. And it's weird because I've only played it twice, and I thought both times it was tremendously fun. Like, the first time I played it, I was like, this is actually my favorite of this entire system of Gaia Project, Terra Mystica. And yet I felt not compelled to go back to it. But I also wonder if the reason why what I'm saying is because like an X Factor. Well, part of me wonders... like if I'm like really just thinking about myself and like how I react to games, like sometimes what's hard is like there's a game that like you see the wave is forming and everyone wants to turn this into a wave, and I've just shown up with fresh new information that, guys, like sort of what you were saying, Trey, like I know this is like this wave is cool right now, this surfing spot's amazing. I just found out about that watering hole over there. This was a great wave. And people say, yeah, but we're all excited about this one right here, so we're going to do this right now. And you're like, well, screw you guys. But like, so sometimes I feel like I don't get onto waves almost like it's so shitty, but like as a protest. It's like, well, I'm like, basically to get out of the metaphor, it's like, oh, I just got this game. I'm so excited about it. And then everyone else is like, yeah, we're excited about it. And I just played this game, Age of Innovation. I'm excited about it too. I'm like, cool. Well, let's play my game now because like we just played Age of Innovation. Let's play. No, we want to play Age of Innovation now. And then you say, oh. And then you get deflated. And then you're like, I don't want to get on that. You don't want to
start to feel like your actual like status in the group. It's like, oh, I'm not important enough.
Yeah,
to
like I
actually
can't help but conflate
change
these
the gravity
emotions.
here. It's like, oh, I don't rate.
Yeah, it's like my enthusiasm is not as worthwhile as someone else's enthusiasm.
Yes, honestly.
And so it's like sometimes I feel like I then resent the game because of that. And it's like it's so unfair to do that. But like when you resent the game, you then don't want to play the game. So I feel like almost like when Age of Innovation came out, that was also a time when there was some other.
Sure.
I don't remember what else was coming out, but like it was a game I probably was like really excited to try out, and no one wanted to try it out because they were having an Age of Innovation moment.
No, I get it. Like I remember Tom decided to not play it because he beat Lumen, and he solved it then. I mean, it was Lumen's first time playing it, and so. Yeah, like I never take it personally because, I just want to play with my friends. Mm-hmm. Age of Innovation, like the thing that has really kept it in my head is ultimately because both Jordan and Mike react so strongly to it. because in the draft and the setting up, like, is so important in a way that it is losable by round one.
But I think also you and David, for instance, have a unique advantage that I feel like you guys both sort of just like show up to play whatever games are going to be there. I mean, David collects games, whereas for me and for some other people who buy games, the moment you buy a game, you're now invested in getting it to the table. And there becomes this situation where like, if you don't get it to the table, like it just, I don't know, like you just want to get it to the table. And so it's going to game night involves more than just like sitting down and playing a game. Sure. It's like, I want to play my thing, So when these waves happen, it can be frustrating in a few ways because a wave is happening and you are excited for your game and you don't know when your game is going to happen. And you don't know why your game can't have a wave also because you see the value in your game.
Maybe it's you.
But also sometimes you buy a game and you're like, I bought this game. I want to play this. But everyone's like, I don't want to play that anymore because we already had the wave. And then you're like, oh, now I just have this game, but I can't ever get to the table.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And I think, like, speaking of David, like David for a long time was like buying little Kickstarter games and he would want to try them out. And we had some bad experiences of like trying out games that he really like. He almost wanted to play them with someone else first before bringing them here. And we had kind of like bad first plays of stuff that wasn't really that good enough. And so to use the surfing analogy, David was often saying, hey, let's go try this thing. And we're like, David, we can't trust you.
Right.
When it comes to these games. I think he's gotten a lot better anyway. And I think we were also kind of shitty. Like we should have been better about like, you know what, David, every 2 months, bring a card game and we will play the card game.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to teach this. And when you're vouching for it, you're vouching for it kind of thing. So like, it does just bring in all of these other like social, where your standing is.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, it's not just like, oh, this is a game that everyone's excited about. There is like an element of like, am I part of like the cool kids right now? At least that's what it brings it up for me. Like it really, it kicks in for me. Like, I'm not like, why is it that like, why can't I get the same enthusiasm? Like why don't people make sure I'm part of the wave? Like it's like, I know these are not necessarily like reasonable questions, but like my mind sometimes goes there like, wow, this game is like a big, exciting game. And actually the truth is a lot of times when you look back, you have been invited to the wave and you just didn't really take it up, when you had the chance.
You played brick and mortar.
You played brick and mortar.
Yeah.
But these things sort of like it sort of summons these insecurities in me.
So one thing I wanted to continue the analogy here a little bit. I've identified some things that I even call like wipeouts. Because like there are times when I play a game once and like that causes me to miss the wave because for whatever reason. And I think almost inevitably I've looked back at after the fact and it was either been like I was really tired so I couldn't like get the teach. Like this happened when I was trying to learn on Mars. Like I was super excited to play on Mars, but I was just too damn tired to learn it. And then it seemed intimidating and I missed the wave on it. There's other times where like I'm just looking back of like things that were like wipeouts where I played them one time and then like I missed the wave, but also like my mind closed totally unfairly of like games that are probably really good. But like looking back on it, it's like sometimes it's like I didn't get the greatest teach, or there was a reason it was a bad experience.
Yeah.
I think that happened with Age of Innovation, where like that should have been an easy one because I'd played Terra Mystica, but like I just remember playing that and like, here's this new stuff. I'm not understanding it. Tom's doing a bunch of stuff over on his board over there, and I don't understand what's going on, but he's totally kicking our butts, and I don't know why. I'm not sure I want to play this anymore. You know, like you have an emotional reaction that happened with 18XX, you know, and it's happened a little bit to like Carnegie, where like I know that's a good game and I need to give it another chance. But sometimes like one bad play can also cause you to wipe out. And then,
or be wiped out because maybe people say like, oh, like you sometimes get that sneaking suspicion like, ooh, I was being a real sourpuss during that game. And I noticed that people aren't inviting me to play it going forward. You know, not saying you, I'm saying me.
No, but I think that's definitely something I need to worry about. Like I can be way too opinionated about games sometimes. And so I think people legitimately sometimes be like, hey, this is this new game I'm really excited about. Maybe I don't need, you know, Trey's, you know,
well, I find that
cynicism, or, you know, I want people that are open-minded towards having a good time. And I'm not always great at that. And so I have to kind of accept that, like, I may not get invited to some stuff because of my opinions. Like, and that's
sometimes
on me.
I will say that sometimes I want to kind of like vet a game first, and I'll be like, is this gonna be a Trey game, or is this gonna be a game that'll drive Trey mad? And like that should be your decision to make ultimately. But like sometimes,
but it does affect your enjoyment of the game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I'm always amused playing with you, I have to say, because when you lose your mind, it is kind of funny, you know.
I'm not sure everybody finds it so funny,
but everyone at this table does.
Yeah.
But by the way, but I have to say the flip side of that is that like when you really like a game, then like I actually find it to be even better because I'm
because like when
you're exacting. You know, Evacuation was actually a bit of a wave for us now that I think about it, and you were into that, etc.
It's a good example, right? But that's like a heavier, complex game where it's like hard to find a bigger audience for that.
Yeah, and
like I would love to play that game some more with people that have already played it.
Yeah,
but that's hard to do.
And that's the thing though. It's like I guess what is sort of what we're not really addressing is the fact that like what makes this a wave versus like a streak or something is that like we play these games and then we stop playing them. And like I love Evacuation. I would play it like if you said let's play Evacuation, I'd be like let's play it, or Hegemony, or like any number of these games. But the thing is that like we play these games and then we just suddenly stop. And I think that's what makes it hard is that like if you miss these windows where like you never know where that window is going to end. You never know, like Horseless Carriage, like boom, it's over. Whereas some games get like a longer window, and that's where it's also frustrating where it's like
we are making a judgment though sometimes. Like I think I do really like Evacuation, but I can't say that every time I've played it, every moment has been fun. Mm-hmm. Like it has a higher frustration factor. I think it's a fascinating puzzle. Every play of El Burro, even when I'm not winning, I'm interested in what's going on. And like, that's the thing that that's what kind of keeps me going. And I think that's why sometimes stuff gets sidelined, or like a similar reaction to Horseless Carriage of like, oh, there's some really interesting things going on here. Am I having a good time with certain portions of this game? No, I don't want to do my little puzzle with the various pieces of the factory. No, that's interesting. Glad I tried it. I'm not dying to do that over and over again.
Yeah.
I think for all of it, like games that I think like hit the wave well are those that like, I think you can see 80% of it, you know, and then you go like, oh, I can play this. Like where there are other games like On Mars. I love On Mars.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
You know, like how many times have I played On Mars in the last 5 years? Twice.
Yeah. You know,
and it's because it's really like you know, like there's a right way of playing it, and I'm doing the opposite.
I think it's like it requires a certain amount of like brain burn and time.
Yeah,
and
you should play it and then play it again, and then play it again.
And also, like when it first is brand new, people are willing to go through that burn and that time because they're excited to play it, whereas like later on it's like not as exciting to like dig it out again. But it is. I had On Mars on my challenge for last year. I was going to try to play it 5 times. I think I played it once.
Yeah, like I think there's the learning inflection point where if you can get to the inflection point quickly, like people really go, oh, I'm getting the goodness of the game immediately. But if there are games that I really respect, I go like, oh, like Indonesia falls into this. Like I really respect Indonesia. It's only after that last game we played 2 years ago where I unlock something. I go like, oh, I see how this all works. Before that, I go like, oh, there's a right way to play. I'm not getting it, and I'm not willing to spend the energy to figure out how to play it right.
Yeah.
You know, not I'm not even saying right. It's like just accessing it at its level. You know? So I feel like that affects it. But like when you have the promise of all, you know, like, oh, here's this intricate stuff. Like, oh, I want to explore this. I think that gets the wave happening, but like you explore it up to the point where you go like, oh, I don't think it's worth the squeeze anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And so like,
but also
and
like
but some games are,
yeah,
which is why we do these like 5x5 lists is like, we know certain things actually are worth it. And we're trying to recreate a wave of sorts. And sometimes that happens. You know, I had a bad first play of Terraforming Mars. I did not love it the first time.
Mine was
for some people,
mediocre.
like, this is our Agricola replacement. And I was like, I don't see it. And I felt the same way about Through the Ages. I had kind of a brutal first teach of Through the Ages, but like I've played those games hundreds, if not thousands of times as an electronic game now. So like somehow I got back onto it because those games are worth it.
Yeah, and let's not overlook, like, sometimes it's not about us burning out on a game. It's just a new shiny object comes in,
100%,
and it just distracts us away. Especially when we have a podcast, and like a lot of times, the one thing that kind of sucks about having a podcast is that like once we do our review, there's a sense of like, and now it's done, and like Salt and Sea, I played it like a few times. Really interesting. Would love to sort of like get that back into it, but it's like almost like the moment that we like lock in. This is how I feel about a game. It's almost like final answer. And like, you know, I mean, for me in that case, you know, I did go out of town like about a week after we did our Salt and Sea thing, but you know, it's just, there's so many of these games that just sort of like, there's a unique obligation as podcasters to have a large breadth of experiences, and to, especially if we're going to do a deep dive on a game, you want to do several plays of something, and so that does get in the way of it. But it is hard. Like a new thing comes along, and suddenly we're just, you know, it's on to the next, and it's really I think that these waves really bring up a lot of, you know, things that happen when you're in the board game hobby. Like it brings up a lot of things about social dynamics. It brings up a lot of things about like how we consume our games and how we approach them. It's fascinating. As we wrap this up, what are some significant games that you feel like, Trey, that you missed the wave on?
Well, I think, right, I've mentioned the ones that I wiped out on. Game, I think, like, you guys can tell me whether these were actual waves or not. Like, I never played Lost Ruins of Arnak.
No.
That came out during the pandemic, so it was weird to. I don't know if it was. So
maybe
wave.
There wasn't.
I don't know. I don't know if it was a wave in our group.
There was a short Weather Machine wave.
There was. Oh, that was one that I actually. Weather Machine was one that I rebuked the wave. Yeah, I went back to the snack shop. I went to I got a hot dog on the beach.
Well, like that's the danger of Lacerda is like it's so complex. You're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm up for that.
But I also wonder, like, Paul and I played it, and we both were like, this was actually pre-wave. Like it was before it even had arrived at Game Brain. Like we played it, and we were both like, that was fine. We were sort of both actually pretty
but not really
even lukewarm.
Yeah. Not in our group. I think people like people with Lacerda, like they want to like Lacerda, and then eventually after a couple of games, and you know whether you really like it or not.
Right.
Yeah, and so we played that initial game. We're both like, not so great. And then people in our group really loved Weather Machine, and then it was almost like we did something wrong. Like it's like, well, you you just didn't understand the theme. You didn't get the theme. The theme was actually about administration. It was not about building a weather machine. And it's like where are the ones? And then and I am fully willing to play it again. But that was a case where I was just like, I don't need to be on this wave.
You mentioned Everdell. I had that on my list. Like that got a lot of plays. I think that's one of those ones
that was
people
before
were like,
me.
Trey, you're not really going to like Everdell.
Like I've never played it. I've never.
That was the Everdell wave happened before I joined the group.
Yeah. Okay.
I played it once online on TTS. I didn't love it. was cute.
And
love the theme.
I only have one play of Underwater Cities, and there was
What? That is actually really surprising to me. That's
Okay,
like
Trey.
crazy surprising to me.
All right. Well, by the way, I also would love to do some wave rehabilitation, and like we can make some pledges to like help. Like I love Underwater Cities, and I will gladly play it with you.
Like I don't even know how that's possible. That's how crazy it is. Like,
okay. Well, that's a good example.
Oh yeah.
of
Oh
it.
my god.
But I didn't love it
And
on
that's
my
all-
first play, but everybody else was like, "Oh my god, this
By the
is
way,
shit."
I have to say, but I love that you missed the wave of Underwater Cities just because it's such a perfect pun.
example.
It's literally a water game.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
love
my
it.
list. That's
If there were things that you bounced off of, I will like maybe I can help. we played the
Thank you for the
expansion.
offer.
It's oh my god, so good. I think my waves, Pandemic Legacy was a big whiff on my part. I never played it.
But
Me too.
did our group, none of our group ever played
But
it?
it's just like
Well,
yeah.
but the hilarious thing is my copy of Pandemic Legacy, like 2020, probably like around March 1st or so, March 2nd, some friends came over for game night and we were like, oh, well, this pandemic's happening. Why don't we play Pandemic? So we all played Pandemic. And I remember we kept on washing our hands like we were supposed to wash our hands now. And we had a great time. And like, it was sort of like a fun, like coming back to a classic. And I was like, guys, we had so much fun tonight. What if I get Pandemic Legacy? I've never played it. Do you guys want to be the Pandemic Legacy group? And everyone's like, yes. I got Pandemic Legacy. Tom Hanks got COVID. We all shut ourselves in. And to this day, Pandemic Legacy sits on my shelf sealed. So
I would play it with you.
I would play Pandemic.
Okay, we got
It's
three.
hard to get legacy stuff but I would do
Yeah,
it.
well, Legacy is an interesting wave because that
You have to commit.
you're committed, you're locked in, and also once you've gone down that path, you're not gonna like do it again. Usually, you're not gonna like do Pandemic Legacy and then play it again with someone else. So, all right,
Let's catch the wave.
all right, well, we'll do that. White Castle, I had missed the wave on that, but though you got me on it. I've now played White Castle twice, so
But that was one of those ones where you said, I have not played it. I
made a
want to play
fuss.
it.
I made a fuss,
And it's so short and easy to teach that like it should
I
be
was
easy
so
to
mad.
catch that wave. Yeah.
So that was one. I was, Earth. I totally missed Earth, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. I've never been that interested in that one, but I missed Earth. Horseless Carriage was my big one. I think of last year, bigger than White Castle. Nucleum was sort of, Merv. I kind of missed the wave on that one. Merv.
Really? Like, was there a Merv?
That was another pandemic. That was another pandemic one.
I was kind of one and done.
Yeah, I played one.
But I feel like that's also a game that. Did you guys ever play it in person or just online?
I think I played it twice.
Oh, you played it in person.
Played it nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would like to play that one in person because I don't know. And then Root's an interesting one. I never really played Root, and then recently there was like a little Root group that I was invited into in our group, and I got to play a game, and I thought it was fun, but it just sort of I never quite like the groups were progressed, and it wasn't like they progressed without me. It was more like. I think my enthusiasm wasn't at the same level as the rest of the groups. The groups
You'd rather play brick and mortar.
Well, the groups have moved on, and so I saw that wave, and I was like, oh, I see this wave is going, and I was like, I get it. I actually was
Sometimes that's okay.
It was not a resentful thing. It was one of those things where I realized like I probably shouldn't have been surfing at this beach.
Yeah.
Like I liked it. Does that make sense? Okay. It wasn't like, oh, you guys left me behind. It was like this was my opportunity to like get on the Route bus. It's not a wave. It's a bus.
It wasn't the route you
and
wanted
I
to
was
go.
too slow. I was too slow to get my ticket ready to cash in to get on the
get
bus.
to ride.
Yeah. That was I think that was my big one that I missed. I don't know, Paul.
Did you get all yours, Paul? Or?
I think
Paul's
we
on
covered-
all the waves.
Like I didn't play White Castle, but I remember the reason why I didn't play White Castle was because I was advocating for Age of Innovation. That I think that there can be two waves happening at the same time, and so
that was the either or.
yeah.
There's actually sort of happening right now. That's sort of happening now. We got an Arcs and Elboro dual wave system happening at the moment, sort of.
Like Horseless
I think
Carriage.
it's
think
just you and me.
You think
Just
Elboro's
you and
done
me,
in the
man.
group? Okay.
Like Horseless Carriage was one where
Elder may have even moved on. I don't know.
No, he still puts it as number one.
Okay. All right.
and I think I played Nucleum just a little later than everyone.
Same.
You're the exception, and yeah, I know. I think because I'm so amenable.
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 Because
Amiable.
you just show up and you're happy to play. So as a result, you're also
Are you?
Well, I think you're
Like,
very valuable to people like me
Spackle.
who want to you are Spackle. Like
Spackle.
for if you're trying to build a wave, but if you're also just trying to play a game, you're like, oh, the perfect sort of person is someone who is
that's right.
who is like pretty much fine with any game. Even if you don't like a game, you don't throw a fit or anything. You also learn rules quickly, so that's helpful. And you're also engaged. If it's a game that you don't like, you stay engaged. You don't disengage, and then it's like, why are you sitting here?
It's a rare game that I don't like. Usually, it's the specific thing. Whether we're hitting the 18th hour, that's really hard on me. When when we're
Can't think of any examples of that.
Exactly.
Offhand.
And even with Nucleum, like I was like, oh, I'm doing my thing. I am in severe last place. And Ben has already lapped me. You still do what you can, right?
Yeah, I mean, also like I think you're really good about saying like, okay, well, I don't love this game, but like the chatter at the table is really fun, so I'm just going to engage with that.
Like, and invariably, someone's going to lose their mind.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment. All right, well, that was fun talking about like what waves are, what we've missed.
But
I love, I'm always happy to bear my insecurities on the podcast about like how I feel. Like I love regressing to middle school as I try to examine. That's what it's all about.
But this is what really all about is like we're back. So
we're back.
So we're here.
I think I don't want to overpromise, but it looks like
Let's challenge our fellow podcasters.
Matt and Jordan, I think, are going to be doing an ARCS review, perhaps with you, Paul, very, very, very soon. I don't know if it's going to be this week or next week. It's all going to depend on the campaigns you guys are all doing, but everyone can get excited for that. And that's all the exciting stuff. So on that note, you've been listening to Game Brain, produced and edited by Matthew Robinson, Tom Donnelly, Trey Alsop, and Ben Mandelker. Special thanks to Daedalus for our incredible music. More on Daedalus at GameBrainPod.com. And thanks to Edamar Peleg for our incredible graphics. Be sure to check him out on Instagram at Kurbuloni or on his website, kurbuloni.com. You can reach us by email at contact@GameBrainPod.com. Thanks for listening, and go play some games with friends. Or make some friends with games.
Ow.